symbol, I have two different meanings.
Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to map. I'm trying to put over in this column either the concept or the symbol or whatever it is we're looking at, and then in these columns put, if I've got the concept, if we all have the same symbol, it would go here. If we have different symbols, it would go here. If we have a symbol here and we all have the same meaning, it would go here. So that's what I'm trying to map. Does that make sense?
Charlotte?
All right, so let's go back a little bit. Our concept is place. So our concept here is the symbol. Is the symbol. And here we all have same location, same meaning. Yes?
Okay, a question here. At one point, Laban used place middle to mean the solar plexus. And from there, the directions
Yeah,
came
that's
out.
yours.
Not the, so the arm, it was the shoulder, this was from this point. Is that still in effect?
Wait a minute, before you start having a
different?
discussion, can we go ahead
So it
and
works
keep it up
different
here a little longer?
No, because what I'm asking is that has that extra different meaning. Right, and in
because it's
your move,
this will
it
cut out
says
me
that
battery.
place, middle, is, correct me if I'm wrong, so you're saying it has the same symbol, same meaning, you're saying it means standing in a neutral position. And I question whether it also means
Without battery,
this
it won't
is
pop
center,
out.
or if I'm on the ground sitting,
Bring my battery.
and I like this, could that also be considered center? Now you're into supporting gestures.
Yeah.
But the point is then, are we all in agreement or not about the meaning of this symbol? And it looks like we may not be.
We're not exactly in agreement, we thought we were, but we aren't, so it needs to
Right.
move, that's what
Right.
I'm saying.
That's why
I
we're
just
using
need to-
stickies so we can
Yeah.
move things.
Yeah, I just need to also say that within the Laban community, the Laban movement analysis community, the concept of center and the direction is under theoretical discussion as well, because within the Laban text, he may have said solar plexus at one point, but then he also refers to center of gravity, that is a whole lot lower than that. And I have always taught, for many years, I've used Sigurd Lader's idea with the white symbol, with the center of the body as being, because he based so much of his choreography on a lot of the space harmony.
Sign for the chest.
No, the white with the
You can use the board. Use the board. That's
Yeah,
right.
we can erase
Is
it.
this a
Yeah, yeah,
I know it.
yeah. They should all be.
Secret data sign?
That was the Lader's. Isn't
For,
that the
say
center?
it again.
For where the center for spatial directions, more like at the waist. I mean,
So
Valerie
the
uses
label.
the idea of the
So
waist.
this would be forward.
So there's a center of gravity, there's the center of levity, and there's the center that's around here. And in a lot of the directions in later scores, because he was basing them on space harmony things, he had that symbol for taking direction from that as opposed to standard or. So I've always used
Something
that.
I've never heard before.
Well, I remember
I worked with
1,000
Lindahl.
years talking with him about it when I was at last at Lindahl back.
So the point is there's a difference.
Yes, and so within our limbs community, there's a difference in terms of, I know Ed Groff has a different idea, and within the literature in Laban, it's not consistent.
All right, so for
And he
this,
changes his mind too.
wait a second. For this symbol, right now I've heard solar plexus, center of gravity, neutral position. Anything else?
Neutral
Body
neutral
center.
standing as opposed to, can it
Like
also include a neutral sitting position, which is another,
Right.
but it has implications.
Belly button center, which is not the same as center of gravity.
Right.
From where you
But center of gravity is not a point in the body.
Right,
Because
but that's but that
Laban
place
told
changes.
his blocks. He didn't know the difference apparently.
Okay, would you all like to keep discussing, or would you like to move on?
Wait,
I'm just-
Jimmyle, we're not quite finished yet. I don't have
Okay.
anything to put on the board yet.
All right.
I'm trying to get, we've got this symbol, and for this symbol we seem to have many different meanings. Is there anything else besides solar plexus, center of gravity, neutral position?
Neutral standing, neutral
belly
sitting.
button center.
Neutral standing, neutral sitting are two different, it changes,
Neutral
it has
sitting.
implications.
Neutral support.
Neutral.
Neutral support, you don't have to specify.
Yeah, that's what I have with support.
Neutral support.
Clearly a lot of change.
I like to think of it as G.
Anything else?
For that.
So there I am.
Can we move on to stillness?
No.
Charlotte,
Because I wanted to,
Where I am.
go ahead.
Yeah, that's just where I am, and then before I start.
Right.
Where, that's, I don't know how to say it, but just.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The center of where I am.
The center one.
Which is sort of like what you're saying.
Yeah.
The center of my kinesphere wherever I am.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, because I have again, I'm not, I have my own opinion about this, but I think that the plain action stroke, for some people coming around, may just mean action. For some people, can I, have an action stroke stand for an attitude, an effort? Can I say, well, I don't want to tell you, you're free to interpret this saying do certain effort ideas. You're free to interpret this doing certain,
Do you
in other words, the
is it a
movement
verb or an adverb?
is movement to be defined as just action, or is movement, because we say it means unspecified movement, to be defined including other aspects, i.e. dynamics,
They're adjectives.
and adjectives, adverbs, and does it mean do a movement? What do we mean by a movement? Is this
Well,
a movement?
I think the key for me there is like appropriate. Is there something, is appropriate even?
right?
Within the context.
Within the context or
Within the context.
Right.
That's key.
Envelopes all over the place. So we define appropriate, right?
That's just it, is it's not appropriate, it's appropriate within a context.
Exactly.
And then there's questions about how you establish the context.
There you go. Right.
And that's fine, but I think that brings it to
That
another.
does. So we have a time to discuss just
There you go. What is a movement?
But we're making progress.
If I may say so, I think it's important to realize the difference between an action, which is a verb, a movement, and a quality, which is how it's done, so that's an adverb. You can't have an adverb without a verb, theoretically.
Good, because then what we get into is, can you write effort or other dynamics without action stroke or some sort of action? This is why I'm bringing this up, because it's an interesting topic that we
When you understand an action must be happening in order for you to be, whatever.
Anyway, the whole other,
Do you consider meaning that the whole question is the effort?
You know what?
He doesn't need movement, he needs to have an effort to move.
well, anyways, again, the point is, there are differences.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Thank you, Charlotte. Can we move on? Would you like to move across horizontally or something? Or would you like to skip all around?
Oh, I love this flexion, because Anne has some great ideas, in my opinion.
Well,
Let's go on to flexion.
Let's make sure we keep track of not miss something. Right. I think it would be easier to go in order.
You want to
Okay.
go in order like we read in the West?
That's
From
fine.
left to right?
That's fine.
Okay. So let's go on to flexion.
Oh, no, we don't do
Stillness.
stillness. We have to do stillness.
All right, so we're going to do stillness now. Do we all agree that this, only this means stillness? No.
And what,
And what do you use for stillness?
We don't have the becoming or the revenues or whatever, we just use real simple.
okay, well, what you're really then talking about is what is the meaning of a circle?
There you
Does
go.
it mean Maintain, hold, does it mean stillness?
So the symbol is the circle.
A plain hold sign.
I'd like to differentiate those out as two separate pieces.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, but first we're looking at the concept of stillness. And what I heard is some people are using this,
Right.
and some people are
Okay.
using that.
Okay.
Now we can also look at the symbol is more if people are using the same symbol with different meanings.
Mhm.
So we've got to do both, we've got
Good.
both there.
Right.
There are some people at Ohio conference, as I recall, who also talked about stillness being without a hold sign or without, and then they would just put an open space, and then they would put an effort or, you know, some sort of dynamic sign next to it. There were those. The problem with that, but that again is a different. That's the way some people did it. So,
Some people call the circle, the road sign, a pause sign, a pause sign. And my view is the pause is a gap.
me too.
If there's movement, a gap on the paper, movement again, so that pause is the gap without any hold sign or stillness sign.
Right, and we can get into why. The point would be, do you want to use the same symbol in the notation system to have different meanings? So is the hold sign by itself going to mean two different things? Stillness and maintain.
Not to mention how it's also an affix a lot of times, like on the gesture symbol or.
Well, then it has,
As part
a
of
plain
the
circle
symbol.
has different meanings in the
But when
the
it's
whole.
on the gesture symbol, it derives its meaning from this idea of holding. So,
Retaining.
Retaining, maintaining, not maintaining.
Retaining, holding, maintaining.
Maintaining what happened.
We interpret that as stillness in the base.
But maintaining, for instance,
No, I don't think, when I have seen on that thing and it means gesture, it's like holding, but I don't mean maintaining, I mean keeping the base still. The
Because
idea is
the
that
word
this is still
maintaining
and
has
this is moving, so it's
Right.
stillness. I mean, because I'm trying very hard to understand the concept of stillness here.
It's really
I
hard
could
to
use the
find
word
the right
stillness
word.
to
Active,
mean
but
holding the base.
instead of thinking the word
Inactive or
stillness,
active.
have the sense of active expression, active expressiveness.
This is the
That
distinction.
you are being expressive consciously, or there is an expressiveness during the pause. And the thing in my mind that differentiates a pause, and it may or may not be visible, it may or may, it depends on whether it's relevant. But the stillness, you invented it, so you
no use inventing something if it isn't useful to others.
to me, I love it.
I just wanted to say in relation to this, I came across somebody who wanted to use the stillness sign while next to a traveler. And my view is stillness is when nothing else is happening, like in music. Silence, then the music starts again, but it's not retaining something with aliveness while you're doing something else.
Why it has to be during a cessation of movement. It's an expressiveness that occurs during cessation of movement.
For the one person or many dancers on stage? You've got many instruments in the
Oh,
orchestra with the whole side, so no instruments.
Well,
played.
just like one person
Not
can
just
stop
one.
moving, another
Well,
people.
One person could be still while the others move.
Right.
Within one person.
Within one person.
Can we move on?
A question. But then if a student saying that I'm still here, but then my other part of body wants in the motif that the other part of body still want to move,
And
then
you're moving, then you're moving. Cessation of movement is the entire body.
Yeah.
You're either moving or you're not moving.
okay.
It's the whole unit.
But actually, there's discussion about that too, at the Motif Symposium. Oona presented a paper questioning that idea, and that's kind kind of like a big question about verbs of motion too, in the analysis of motion verbs, so.
Say again, Jimmyle?
I said that Oona presented a paper
Yeah.
on this idea that you just brought up at this Motif Symposium too, questioning the,
Oh, this summer?
like complex ideas of motion and stillness, separate systems in the body, and also some category in the way people perceive action verbs in motion studies at this point.
Before we move on, I want to check what I put up on the board to make sure that I got it right. I put a number of things on the board. I put the concept of stillness, for which we had this symbol, or a gap. I put this sign.
I'm sorry. Did everyone think that a gap meant stillness?
That's what I heard.
The word stillness?
No.
Somebody did.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
If you have a gap in the noun column, it means without
You're
traveling
talking
through
about
space.
motifs.
We
Motif.
don't have
Motif.
column. But there, reason I brought that up, there were people in Ohio, are you right? Again, it's not what I do, but there were, right? Who said that a gap meant what we are defining as stillness.
So the concept of a gap or cessation of action has to be part of the argument, is that what you're?
Yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
right. Yeah.
Because a lot of times that's, if you don't want to get into a lot of symbol making, gaps just mean cessation of movement in motif. For a lot of people in the LMA field, because and if you really want something, if you really want to say something important about pausing, then you can throw that other, the circle in. But that's, you only would basically use that if you really want to say something about pausing. But just leaving a gap could,
It means, but there were people there who said that a gap that was then modified in some way was stillness, that the way they were talking about writing stillness, and not just a pause, but a pause that is expressive, which is the way we're defining stillness. That was written by making a gap and something else. That's what they did.
Oh, I see, put in a quality.
Whatever, that's what they did. Now, I didn't think that worked, but again, if you want to look and talk about what people are doing, that's what they said they were doing.
the issue, that sort of needs to be in the pot.
Because, not that I would do it,
That's
but
definitely an
that's
issue.
part of what the issue is.
Well, I think it goes down to the basic idea about stillness.
So the concept is the gap, and the meaning is stillness.
Yes, the meaning is stillness.
The meaning is intentional
The
cessation of
meaning is
movement.
stillness, and we have 3 different ways people express it.
Right.
Either with a gap, this side, or this side.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think for some people, there's also a difference in the meaning of the word stillness.
Then I've got, I'm getting there, I'm getting there. Then I've got this sign. And for this same symbol, some people use this for stillness, is up here. Some people use it for maintain or retaining.
I think maintain, retain are the same.
Same thing.
Okay? Then we have the idea of pause, which some people are, for some has a different meaning than stillness.
Right.
Which some people are showing with a gap and some people with this symbol.
Right.
And then we have this symbol.
Yes, and everybody's probably in agreement about what that means.
That's what I'm asking. Does everybody agree that that means an expressiveness while there's a cessation of movement?
Or an intentional.
I can agree to that, but we don't use it.
And I don't understand.
I mean, because I've worked in both systems back and
I
forth.
tried really hard.
Okay, let me explain how it came about. When you're teaching children, there's a difference between statues, stop, or between something still reverberating like music. And so I thought, yes, stillness, that's the reverberation idea. That's how it came about.
You know, Anne, when you demonstrated it just now, you had such ongoing expressiveness in those statues. That I would have called it a stillness in terms of your definition of it. There was ongoing expressive energy.
Oh, I just an expressive
Yeah.
person.
That's right.
No, but you know, people can just stop dead, nothing.
That's one of the reasons why I like to use the word intention. Because
Attention,
intention.
intention.
Yeah.
Because I think that I can have the intention of
Being a statue.
being a statue. And that's meaningful within the context of my choreography. So I like that addition of intentional expressiveness.
The word reverberation is the best I've heard yet to make it very clear what the symbol's trying to say.
So for this symbol,
I would,
I have now intentional expressiveness with cessation of movement, and then I've indicated that some use this and some don't.
Could I,
But we can agree to the meaning, even those who aren't using it, but they're not using it.
I don't know whether this is something that should go on the chart or not, but a lot of the reason, like, we don't use be any action, we just do the straight thing, we'll just do the circle, because we're writing as the people are moving a lot of times, and we're going to keep the actual strokes that we're doing as simple as possible. So there is a reason that we do that, whether that's important for you to know that context or not.
yeah, it is.
And I'm very
It
glad
is.
to know, because this is such a totally different application.
Right,
Yeah,
that's right,
yeah.
but there's a beautiful example of how the application influences.
Charlotte?
I'm wondering also, the word intention, sometimes, I mean, the word I like to use a lot of times is relevance, because intention kind of implies that that's the only reason. I mean, I might look that.
It applies weight effort to me.
Right, there you go, there's another
I mean,
issue.
it implies weight effort.
But a person, if I'm looking at the movement and deciding whether or not to write a stillness sign, it may or may not, the person may or may not themselves have an intention. But I have to decide based on my context and the purpose of the notation. They may be very expressive during it, but it's not relevant to my context of what I'm writing about to include that it's being still. You understand what I'm saying? So
Because
the
you're
word-
choosing a certain level of description.
Exactly.
You are limiting yourself for a reason.
That's right. The application of it may not make it relevant. And so, for
Then that's
me,
your choice.
right,
Isn't it true that that's the way it is with almost everything you write, though?
yeah, so that's why I'm saying the word I kind of.
I think those are two different
including-
things. I'm hearing intention and relevance as two different things.
Yeah.
Intention to me is prescriptive. It gets into that prescriptive, descriptive thing. You know, do you see my intention of stillness? Well, you know, I have the prescriptive idea that my intention is to have an active stillness, but descriptively, you may say, no, it's not registering for me. But I think relevance is another issue in terms of, okay, how am I choosing to frame my thinking and my looking for my notational needs at this
Or
point?
how am I choosing to frame it as a mover?
Right.
Yeah,
I may be this way, but that's not what I'm focusing on.
right.
And that's not what I care to, in my structure of my notation, my structure of my dance to focus on. I chose, so it may not be relevant, but relevant in the context of my structure for me as a mover. It may or may not be.
There's also the intention of the
But
mover,
versus the intention of the
intention of the
writer.
observer.
That's prescriptive.
Right,
right.
And the intention of maybe in a structured score of the choreographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
The
I mean,
intention
yeah,
is the purpose
so
of the document when it's
Exactly.
read later, if that's it.
and then it all gets back to this, the purpose of your writing.
Right.
But it's wonderful to have these choices of description.
Right.
And not to say, oh, that one doesn't exist, or if you don't
Exactly.
need it,
Exactly.
this person has a need, you may not.
Exactly. Exactly.
I've just been putting some things up here that don't really go on the chart. but just the application influencing symbol choice, intention of the performer, the observer, the choreographer, intention and relevance. I'm just trying to keep, not on the chart, but they go there.
Other
Really
words.
Right.
They're things that are relevant to what they're doing.
Or irrelevant.
They are relevant to our intention. There you go. Probably we should order and then
Breaking down 12:15 or 12:30 or?
well, if we order now, they'll deliver. And we'll break when it comes.
Right.
Let's just,
Did you get Anne's quote there about how wonderful it is to have all these choices? To really understand what each other means by them?
Amen.
I want you to write that down. I have it on my computer.
I don't know which option, because you know, those are the options that are needed.
Option choices.
Not to mention all the nuances when we really get world inclusive.
so before we, where were we? So we had the idea of stillness and pause, which for some people were different. So I've got them both up here. And for pause, we had either a gap or this symbol. And then we had, we did that one. And then we have the gap, which for some people means cessation of movement. And for some people it meant cessation of movement with an internal expression.
Right, a gap though, a gap, without anything else stated.
Well, is there anybody here that would see a gap and think of cessation of movement with internal expression?
You would, Jan.
Sometimes. It depends on the context of the entire phrase.
If you saw a gap, would you say, let's say you say a forward symbol, and then a gap followed by another direction symbol. You'd say the gap, would you, I'm not put words in your mouth, would you say that by default I should have an intent of forwardness because there's a gap?
Probably. But I
Is this, would this come under personal interpretation? When I read the score, if I feel like being alive during the gap, or being dead, or not thinking about it, or just stopping?
I'm saying this because
Yeah.
you, when you tease, I'm just, again, playing devil's, not
Right.
necessarily what I would do, but
Right.
trying to get
Right.
into other people's heads.
Well, if the idea, I mean, it depends on how someone would end the forwardness and where they would be.
Yeah.
But if you have nothing there, it means you're not moving in a way.
Well, what I'm saying is that I
But you
remember
hope, yeah.
you're saying, and again, this was years ago, so maybe you can, that by default,
Right.
because, in my sense of what, the way you
Right,
taught,
right.
is that by default, we should say that there's intention. And that if we want to say there is an intention, then we need a way of
If you drop and you die, then you say, then that's what
or
they
the
do. That's
intention
another
is
thing.
not important, then you need a way of saying, but for my sense is for you by default, the
Yes.
gap should include the sense of the intent.
Right.
So in that case, that means without the stillness sign. Am I right? Am I
Right.
interpreting?
Yeah, in the most very basic way.
Okay.
Right.
So this
But I
is
also think-
interpretation.
Right, but I guess it's because I understand, the way I understand Anne's symbol with the becoming on it, as having dynamic. I would say dynamic as opposed to intention, because for LMA people, intention has a very specific meaning.
Okay.
So in terms of the use of the word
Dynamic
intention,
is a good
I
word.
would say dynamic.
But it could be,
It would be any kind of dynamic. No,
It could be the dynamic of being small.
right, or it could be any